Welcome, fellow night owls, to Bedtime True Crime, the YouTube channel that delves deep into the chilling world of true crime, serial killers, and unsolved mysteries. Join us as we journey into the shadows, unearthing spine-tingling tales that are sure to keep you awake at night. Our in-depth investigations will bring these horrifying cases to life, leaving you with an insatiable thirst for more. Before we dive in, if you're new here and enjoy our stories, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss another thrilling episode. Now, turn off the lights, get comfortable, and prepare to be captivated by the sinister side of human nature as we delve into today's bone-chilling story. In the late 1950s, terror gripped a small town in Scotland as a brutal killer stalked its streets. The residents of Birkenshaw lived in constant fear, unaware that one of their own would turn out to be responsible for the string of horrific murders that shook their community to its core. The story begins in Lanarkshire, a picturesque region in central Scotland, known for its rolling hills and historic towns. With its quaint stone cottages and friendly locals, it seemed like an unlikely setting for such gruesome crimes. But beneath this idyllic facade lay something far more sinister, a darkness that was about to be unleashed by none other than Peter Manuel. Born on March 13, 1927, Manuel's childhood was marred by violence and abuse at the hands of his father. As he grew older, it became apparent that young Peter had inherited his father's violent tendencies and penchant for crime. By the age of 16, he had already been convicted for sexual assault, an early sign of what was to come. As we delve deeper into this macabre tale, you'll learn how Peter Manuel earned himself the chilling moniker, the Beast of Birkenshaw, and discover just how far he went to satisfy his bloodlust. So stay with us until the end, where we reveal some truly shocking twists in this twisted tale. Now let's set our stage. The year is 1956. Post-war Britain is still recovering from the devastation wrought during World War II. In these uncertain times, communities banded together against external threats. But little did they know that danger lurked much closer to home. Enter Isabel Cook, a bright-eyed teenager who enjoyed spending her free time playing piano at church gatherings or dancing with friends at local parties. She led a seemingly normal life until one fateful night when she crossed paths with Peter Manuel. What started off as an innocent evening quickly turned into a nightmare when Isabel was abducted, assaulted, and brutally murdered by Manuel. This would be the first of many heinous acts committed by this ruthless killer over the next 2 years. But how did Peter Manuel manage to evade capture for so long? What drove him to commit these unspeakable atrocities? And most importantly, what could have been done to prevent them? As we delve further into the Beast of Birkenshaw's killing spree, you'll discover just how far some people are willing to go in pursuit of their twisted desires. So keep listening, if you dare. The terror began to escalate in Birkenshaw when Peter Manuel struck again, this time targeting a local family. The Watt family consisted of Marion and Vivian Watt, Marion's sister Margaret Brown, and Vivian's 17-year-old daughter Anne. On the night of September 17, 1956, while William Watt was away on a fishing trip, what unfolded within their home would send shockwaves through the community. In the dead of night, Manuel broke into the Watt residence with malicious intent. Brandishing an unknown weapon, likely a hammer or blunt instrument, he crept through the house searching for his victims. His first target was Marion Watt. She lay sleeping peacefully in her bed as he approached her unsuspecting form. With a swift blow to the head that cracked open her skull like an eggshell, Marion met her gruesome end at Manuel's hands. Her death must have been quick, but unimaginably brutal. Blood splattered across the walls and soaked into the sheets beneath her lifeless body. But Manuel wasn't finished yet. Next on his list were Margaret Brown and young Anne, who shared another room down the hall. He moved silently towards them before dealing equally vicious blows to their heads as well. Their screams went unheard by neighbors, as they too succumbed to their attacker's merciless wrath. The scene left behind was one of carnage. 3 women brutally murdered in cold blood without any apparent motive or reason. Investigators arrived at the scene only to find themselves faced with more questions than answers. What could possibly drive someone to commit such atrocities? How did this monster manage to slip inside undetected? And most chillingly, why had he chosen these innocent people as his targets? As we continue our journey into darkness, you'll learn how Peter Manuel managed to evade capture even after leaving a trail of destruction behind him. We'll also explore some theories about what may have driven him over the edge, turning him into a monster. Stay with us as we delve further into the twisted mind of the Beast of Birkenshaw. The nightmare continued as Peter Manuel's reign of terror showed no signs of stopping. In December 1957, he struck again in the quiet town of High Burnside, located just outside Glasgow. This time, his victims were Sydney and Jemima Dowdell, an unsuspecting elderly couple who had no idea what horror awaited them that fateful night. Manuel slipped into their home under the cover of darkness, determined to leave a trail of devastation in his wake. He found Sydney asleep on the couch, perhaps exhausted from a long day or simply enjoying an afternoon nap. With stealthy precision, Manuel crept up behind him before delivering a brutal blow to his head with a blunt object. Sydney never stood a chance. He died instantly without ever knowing what hit him. Blood pooled beneath his body as it slumped lifelessly onto the floor, another victim claimed by the Beast of Birkenshaw. But once more, Manuel was far from finished. His lust for violence unsatiated, he moved through the house until he encountered Jemima, likely drawn by her horrified gasps upon discovering her husband's remains. She must have sensed her impending doom as Manuel closed in on her like prey. The details surrounding Jemima's death are too gruesome to recount here, but suffice it to say she suffered greatly at the hands of this sadistic killer. Her final moments would have been filled with pain and terror beyond imagining. Once again, investigators arrived at a crime scene stained with blood and shrouded in mystery. Despite mounting evidence against him, Peter Manuel managed to avoid arrest even after killing 5 innocent people in cold blood. How could such evil go undetected for so long? Was there something about these crimes that allowed the Beast of Birkenshaw to slip through authorities' fingers? As we delve deeper into this chilling tale, you'll learn how close Manuel came to capture on multiple occasions, and the shocking reasons why he was able to elude justice for so long. Stay with us as we journey further into darkness, uncovering the sinister secrets that lay hidden within Peter Manuel's twisted mind. As Peter Manuel's bloodlust continued to grow, he set his sights on yet another family in the small village of Uddingston. On January 1st, 1958, New Year's Day, he targeted the Smart family, a seemingly happy and ordinary suburban household consisting of Peter Smart, his wife Doris, and their 10-year-old son Michael. On that fateful night, as fireworks lit up the sky and neighbors celebrated with joyous cheers, the Beast of Birkenshaw crept into the Smarts' home like a predator stalking its prey. It was said that after breaking in through an unlocked door or window, Manuel took time to familiarize himself with the layout of the house before making his move. The unsuspecting family lay asleep in their beds when Manuel quietly entered each room one by one. With cold-blooded precision, he shot all 3 of them at point-blank range using a stolen revolver. Their lives were extinguished as quickly as they had begun, taken from this world without warning or mercy. Once satisfied with his gruesome handiwork, Manuel did something unthinkable. He lingered within the house for several hours following the murders. Reports suggest that he even went so far as to eat leftovers from their fridge and sleep in one of their beds before leaving behind forged notes implicating William Watt, who we mentioned earlier, for these crimes. This chilling act demonstrated not only how unhinged the Beast of Birkenshaw had become, but also just how brazenly he taunted authorities who were unable to catch him despite mounting evidence against him. It would be several days before the bodies were discovered, left to rot where they lay, while their killer roamed free among those who sought justice for his victims. But soon enough, Manuel's luck would finally run out. Stay tuned as we delve further into this harrowing tale and explore how investigators ultimately brought down the Beast of Birkenshaw. We'll also examine the aftermath of his crimes, including the impact on victims' families, and how this case changed the course of Scottish criminal history forever. As the body count continued to rise, authorities grew increasingly desperate to apprehend the Beast of Birkenshaw before he could strike again. But it was only after his final gruesome act, the murder of the Smart family, that detectives began to piece together the chilling puzzle surrounding Peter Manuel's identity. The initial response by law enforcement involved an exhaustive search for any possible leads or connections between victims. This proved challenging due to Manuel's seemingly random choice of targets and lack of discernible motive. However, as they delved deeper into each case, a pattern slowly began to emerge. All victims were attacked in their own homes during the night with brutal force. The evidence collection process consisted of carefully combing through crime scenes for clues such as fingerprints, footprints, and other trace elements left behind by the killer. In some cases, this led investigators down dead-end paths, but ultimately, it would be these very same pieces of evidence that sealed Manuel's fate. One crucial breakthrough came when police discovered that William Watt had been framed using forged notes implicating him in the murders, something only someone intimately familiar with both families and their connection could have known. This pointed them towards Manuel, who had previously worked alongside Watt at a local construction site. Additionally, ballistics experts matched bullets found at multiple crime scenes to a stolen revolver linked directly back to Manuel. They also uncovered eyewitness accounts placing him near several locations where attacks occurred around the time they took place. With all these damning pieces falling into place like a sinister jigsaw puzzle, authorities finally felt confident enough to make their move against Peter Manuel, bringing an end to his horrific killing spree once and for all. The lives of the victims and their families were forever changed by the Beast of Birkenshaw's brutal crimes. Each family was left to pick up the shattered pieces, mourning loved ones taken from them in such a cruel and senseless manner. For Isabel Cook's family, her disappearance and subsequent murder cast a dark shadow over what should have been some of the happiest years of her life. Her parents struggled to come to terms with losing their vibrant daughter, who had so much potential ahead of her. In the case of Marion Watt, Margaret Brown, and Anne, 3 generations snuffed out in one horrifying act. Their surviving relatives faced not only grief, but also suspicion, as authorities initially believed that William Watt may have played a role in their deaths. It wasn't until Peter Manuel's capture that they could finally begin healing without fear or doubt looming over them. The Dowdell family suffered unimaginable heartache when Sidney and Jemima were brutally murdered within their own home, a place where they should have felt safe and secure. Their loss serves as a stark reminder that evil can strike anywhere, even in seemingly peaceful communities like High Burnside. And for the Smart family, Peter, Doris, and young Michael, theirs is perhaps the most chilling story of all. A Happy New Year celebration turned into an unthinkable nightmare at the hands of a merciless killer who showed no remorse for his actions. These are just some of the stories behind those whose lives were touched by tragedy during Peter Manuel's reign of terror. While we cannot bring back those lost, nor erase the pain inflicted upon these innocent souls, it is our hope that by sharing their stories we might honor their memory while shedding light on this harrowing chapter in Scottish criminal history. Peter Manuel, the Beast of Birkenshaw, was a complex and deeply disturbed individual. His motivations for committing such heinous acts remain somewhat enigmatic, but certain aspects of his background provide some insight into the twisted psyche that drove him to murder. Manuel's early life was characterized by violence and abuse at the hands of his father, experiences that likely contributed to the development of his own violent tendencies later in life. By the age of 16, he had already been convicted for sexual assault, setting him on a dark path from which there would be no return. His criminal behavior escalated over time as he became increasingly bold and ruthless in his actions. This progression culminated in multiple murders committed with brutal ferocity against innocent victims who happened to cross his path. It is believed that power and control played significant roles in Manuel's murderous rampage. As a predator stalking vulnerable prey within their own homes, he held total dominion over their lives and deaths. He derived pleasure not only from inflicting pain upon others, but also from asserting himself as an unstoppable force capable of evading capture, despite numerous close calls with authorities. In addition to this lust for power, it has been suggested that Peter may have harbored deep-seated feelings of resentment towards society or specific individuals whom he felt wronged by during his troubled upbringing. These grudges could have manifested themselves through acts of extreme violence, Retribution exacted upon those unfortunate enough to find themselves caught up in Manuel's web of hatred and rage. Ultimately, while we can never truly understand what goes on inside the mind of someone like Peter Manuel, these factors offer some glimpse into the darkness that consumed him, leading him down a blood-soaked path marked by death and destruction. As Peter Manuel's killing spree continued, authorities were growing increasingly desperate to bring him to justice. The manhunt for the Beast of Birkenshaw intensified as detectives began piecing together evidence from multiple crime scenes and witness accounts. Throughout his reign of terror, there were several close calls where law enforcement nearly apprehended Manuel. In one instance, he was questioned by police while in possession of a stolen car, but managed to talk his way out of suspicion. He even brazenly attended some victims' funerals and visited their grieving families, an unnerving testament to his twisted sense of invincibility. However, it would be the forged notes implicating William Watt that ultimately led investigators straight to Manuel. As they delved into his background and criminal history, they discovered numerous connections between him and various murder victims, including working alongside Watt at a construction site. The turning point came when detectives found a key piece of evidence linking Manuel directly to the Smart family murders. A wristwatch belonging to Peter Smart had been pawned by Manuel shortly after their deaths. This discovery provided enough probable cause for his arrest on January 14, 1958. As authorities closed in on their suspect, they conducted surveillance operations around Uddingston Village, monitoring his movements closely until they felt confident enough to make their move. Finally cornered with nowhere left to run or hide, Peter Manuel was arrested and charged with multiple counts of murder. With Peter Manuel finally in custody, the stage was set for a trial that would captivate and horrify the nation. The proceedings began on May 12, 1958, with crowds gathering outside Glasgow High Court to catch a glimpse of the man responsible for such monstrous acts. During the trial, prosecutors presented an overwhelming amount of evidence against Manuel, including ballistics reports linking him to multiple crime scenes through matching bullets found at each location. They also provided eyewitness accounts placing him near several murder sites around the time they occurred. Manuel's defense strategy was unconventional. He chose to represent himself throughout the trial. This decision allowed him to cross-examine witnesses directly and present his own version of events in an attempt to cast doubt upon the prosecution's case. Despite his best efforts, however, it quickly became apparent that there was no escaping justice this time. With each piece of damning evidence laid before the jury, any remaining hope he had of evading punishment slowly slipped away. On July 11, 1958, after just 2 hours of deliberation by jurors who had been subjected to weeks of gruesome testimony and chilling revelations about the Beast of Birkenshaw's horrific crimes, Peter Manuel was found guilty on 7 counts of murder, though many suspect he may have been responsible for even more deaths than those officially attributed to him. He was sentenced to death by hanging, a fitting end for someone who showed no remorse or empathy towards his victims or their families. His execution took place on July 11, 1958 at Barlinnie Prison in Glasgow. As darkness enveloped Scotland once again that night, so too did it consume Peter Manuel forevermore. In reflecting on this harrowing story and its impact on all those touched by tragedy during Manuel's reign of terror, we are reminded not only of humanity's capacity for evil, but also our ability to come together in pursuit of justice and healing. Let this tale serve as a stark warning against complacency and remind us to cherish the safety of our loved ones while remaining vigilant in the face of danger lurking just around the corner. As we reach the conclusion of this chilling tale, it's important to remember that while Peter Manuel, the Beast of Birkenshaw, may be gone, his heinous crimes will never be forgotten. His victims and their families were forever changed by the horrors they faced at his hands. For them, life would never be the same.